Do you smell that? It smells like perfection. Ah, yes. I know what it is. It's the amazing, consistent, flawless, one-of-a-kind Paper Mario series. Well, forgive me for dreaming. It could have been all these things. The series deserved to be one of Nintendo's greatest. It earned it with its first 2 games. But it wasn't sustained. Oh, forgive me. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm JoPro. Well, sort of. Right now, you're in my mind. This is how I view myself. This is me. Pleased to meet you, I'm 1 inch tall. So back to what I was saying. There's already enough disdain on the internet for the second half of the Paper Mario series. For example, Sticker Star. A horrible disappointment that not only fails to capture the magic of its predecessor, but seems oblivious to what made them popular in the first place. That's actually really fair. How about the infamous Arlo's reaction to Color Splash's announcement?
What? What? We want partners. We want a real Paper Mario 3. We want a sequel to 1,000 Year Door.
Look, guys, I'm not here to beat to dead Yoshi, even if it absolutely deserves to be tortured to eternity. Instead, I'd like to take the time to showcase and elaborate on the 8 things that made the first 2 games in the series so gosh darn special and loved. And that's not to say some of the later games aren't cherished as well. I think that every single Paper Mario game is still at the very least an enjoyable adventure. On second thought, I stand corrected. Let's get started with number 1. Consider this for a moment. A barren, boring, dull Earth where every continent was a giant desert or a massive forest with no interesting people or locations to be found. Wouldn't that be boring? Uninteresting? Why, yes it would. Recent games in the series suffer from repeating themes and an over-reliance on plain color palettes, such as basic greens, yellows, reds, and so on. But this wasn't always the case. Take the very first game as an example. Sure, it had your standard deserts, forests, and jungles, just like Sticker Star had, but the designs, colors, locations, and characters had so much more diversity and creative direction. Dry Desert has way more personality and features far more robust terrain and locations than any desert in later games. And rather than focusing on making a green, papery forest, Forever Forest instead replicates a genuinely spooky, creepy forest that looks like an actual forest. And 1,000 Year Door proves my case even more. We see giant trees, floating tourist-infested islands, and an underground post-apocalyptic town. What's that? You have the moral high ground because you say Super Paper Mario does all this too? You're absolutely right. For the most part, its worlds are fun and creative as well, if not quite as much as 1,000 Year Door. And as you'll soon see, Super Paper Mario exhibits many of the items on this list. But there's also many it doesn't. Sorry guys. Thanks to the brilliant variety and creative design of the first 2 games, traversing their world fails to grow tedious. Toss in some memorable side quests and lovable characters, and instead of a bland world nobody wants to live in, you have color, personality, and flavor in your world. That's the kind of place I want to live, wouldn't you? Oh, and also, it doesn't hurt that the NPCs feel attached to the world they live in and aren't just toads, often referencing locations, prior events, and fears they face in their everyday lives, and aren't just toads. All this and more makes the worlds in the first 3, but specifically, the first 2 Paper Mario games feel so special, and aren't just toads. At first glance, the battle system from the first 2 games seems repetitious, overly simple, and relatively streamlined. And while all those things are somewhat true, especially of the first game, you gotta ask yourself, isn't that better than having no battle system? Or having an obnoxiously bad battle system? Absolutely! And don't forget, the 1,000 Year Door really spiced things up by making the audience interaction critical to success, and adding in action commands to star moves. But most importantly, what makes the battle systems in the first 2 games even better and more complex when you look closely is how expandable and adaptable they are, There is no one-size-fits-all, and each battle can be overcome in numerous different ways. Feeling impatient? Take the horde out with a star attack. Prefer something cumbersome and tedious? Sure, there are methods for you too, you boring man. Or maybe you'd like to allow your partner to show off and take a well-deserved shroom break. That works too. In some playthroughs, this adaptable system has even made it possible for me to beat the entire game without relying on FP, items, partners, or star power. And I have very, very small hands, which it doesn't really help either, now that I think about it. These challenge runs are only possible because of the versatility of combat in the games, and the number of options you have for handling enemies. To see my current challenge run of the 1,000-Year Door, click the on-screen link now. Or don't. I won't be upset. I didn't really expect anyone to anyways, you know? Of all the items on this list, this is one of the most important ingredients of what made the first two games so incredibly special. They feel like your classic Mario adventure, with classic Mario species, locations, and stories, but they aren't afraid to introduce new material to the series. X-Nauts, sketchy towns, highly deadly bees, slightly less deadly bush monsters, whatever these guys are. And it can be said that Paper Mario 64 did play it significantly safer in this regard, which it needed to, but the 1,000-Year Door really opened the floodgates with its character, world, and narrative personality, and both games are flat out charming. Get it? Flat out? Ow! These games just feel like they belong in the Mario universe, while introducing so much of their own concepts. It's a balance that Intelligent Systems has had trouble replicating in recent titles, but one that fans are clamoring for. The classic age-old comparison is that of the Toads. We used to have charming, personable Toads with neat, adorable little Toad costumes and Toad names, but now they're all generic and unmemorable. Color Splash certainly improves upon Sticker Star in this regard by introducing some fun personalities and hilarious dialogue, but most of these Toads still fail to stick out as individuals. The first two games delivered this in spades, and again, Super Paper Mario somewhat exhibited this, but it often strayed too far from the classic Mario atmosphere, and many of its characters were just weird and felt like lazy designs. Kinda reminds me of someone, but I can't place who. By far, one of the most notable and obvious ingredients necessary for a great Paper Mario game is interesting partners. Without them, the series would have an awful time maintaining its identity and fan base it worked so hard to attain. Right, Miyamoto? Well, hey, at least Sticker Star was going to have partners. That counts for something. Obviously, partners are important for battle, but their absence stings in many more ways than one. The key here is their personalities. Even those who aren't exactly helpful, like Goombella, still have loads of character and depth, and that's absolutely crucial to the enjoyment of the game. Parakarry, the overworked mailman. Bobbery, the depressed widower. Vivian, the forsaken sister. Flurry, the Sushi, the horrible smelling babysitter. Oh, and this pathetic piece of garbage who does nothing and has no personality other than creeping on his younger sister. I don't have time for your lectures, Goombario, I'm making a video. These characters each have their own motives for joining Mario, and are passionate about seeing Mario through. But by far the neatest aspect of partners is their diverse movesets and interchangeable in-game dialogue that only adds to the extensive replay value. Oh, Chompy McChomperface, if only I had known ye, and known your family, and known your passions, and known your dating history. But alas, it wasn't meant to be. Ladies and gentlemen, if Partners were the crazy old uncle of the most glaring deficiencies in Sticker Star and Color Splash, then Leveling Up is the psychotic, Grey's Anatomy-obsessed, overly protective aunt. Disclaimer, this aunt is based on absolutely no one in particular. Absolutely no one. Leveling up is so crucial to an RPG game, and especially to a Paper Mario game, that it's genuinely insane that it was left behind. Sure, you can increase your paint capacity in Color Splash by completing battles, but that is not reason enough to go out of your way to participate in the first place. On the other hand, participating in combat in the first two games is completely necessary for expanding your abilities, whether it be your HP, FP, or BP. And unlike most games in which each category are leveled up simultaneously, you get to choose which to increase. This allows you to focus on one category over another, and can lead to some pretty fun aforementioned challenge runs. And of course, the game becomes more difficult as it progresses, so leveling up is important, but it is also optional. You can still avoid battles to make the game more challenging for yourself, and that freedom is so satisfying you have no idea. Oh yeah, and partners can level up too. So, back to my aunt and uncle analogy, that's basically like, or maybe we shouldn't. In the interest of time, I'll keep this one somewhat brief. Fact is, Color Splash is absolutely gorgeous. Easily one of Nintendo's prettiest games, and there's nothing wrong with that. Although the first two games lacked some of the graphical fidelity and detail seen in Color Splash, they also exercised restraint. TTYD did it best as usual. Sure, it utilized papery mechanics to say that yes, this is a Paper Mario game, but the world still felt real, and lived in, and really lived in. We don't need an overdose of paper, paint, stickers, and skizzers. Sometimes subtlety isn't bad. And let me tell you, some of the environments in those first two games are just so beautiful, so unbelievably well designed. And the music, it's so good! And now, please enjoy my interpretive dancing to several covers of the game's music that are far less likely to copyright claim me than Nintendo.
Please stand by.
This is a two-parter. For one, the riveting, emotional stories on display in the first three games, yes, you heard that right, Super really delivers in this category once again, is unprecedented, and some of the best material Nintendo has delivered to fans, period. The twists, developments, and intricacies leave you begging for more, and the payoff at the end of the games doesn't once fall flat like it does in the latter two adventures. The game's formats also work really well. They're typically fairly simple. Collect 7 or 8 objects from their respective chapters and bosses, and then fight the final boss. Simple, but super easy to hook you. I still remember playing TTYD as a kid, and one of my fondest memories were the moments before the map revealed the next Crystal Star location. I was ecstatic. The excitement that I was about to discover the next genius location I would be soon exploring was too much to handle. Honestly, people, the formula worked. It didn't need fixing, it needed advancement, refinement, and development. Imagine a new game like the first two, but with 12 areas and bosses, and thus 12 stars. Mind blown. And they could do it, if they just allow themselves to be that creative again. And yes, bring back the emotional stories too. Us fans can handle more than generic toads and bland villains. We're ready for the depth and creative passion of the first games once more. Last, but most certainly not least, is that the first two games, and only the first two games, had an absolutely, positively, super don diddly duo-shiz combination of RPG, platforming, strategy, and adventure elements that are not only so unique to Paper Mario, but that perfect mix has never, ever been seen in any other video game before or since. You wouldn't expect so many different elements to work together so well. But they do. Maybe they even worked too well, which encouraged Nintendo and Intelligent Systems to try something new. Surely it would capture the same spirit and success. No. Nope. The ingenious combination of gameplay and design elements really is the most important ingredient to Paper Mario. It's what should still be there. It's your grandma's secret sauce that tasted so gosh darn good, but she forgot the recipe. Sure, partners and XP were the bread of the Paper Mario sandwich, but even if they returned, the games just wouldn't taste as good as they used to because they still wouldn't have the perfect balance of RPG, platforming, strategy, and adventure elements. Listen guys and girls, I don't want this video to come across as too negative. If anybody is creative enough, passionate enough, and intelligent enough, pun fully intended, to make the perfect Paper Mario game, it's these developers. I 100% feel they have it in them if they only choose to, but they clearly don't realize how fondly we view the first two games. I really hope you enjoyed this video and found at least a few points you could agree and relate with from your own experiences with the series. Paper Mario is still a wonderful franchise, but the first two games are so special to my tiny plastic heart, and the best way I could express that is with these 8 reasons. Agree or disagree? Leave a comment and let me know why. After all, I'm only a Lego, so what do I know? Thanks for watching JoPro. Bye bye!